chew the fat and give you our gut reactions on all things pop culture, film, TV, and theatre. We talk to legends in the creative industry and those on the rise. We game old school. We do all this and a whole lot more. Like, subscribe, get involved. Join Larkstein, Anthony Nielsen, and the Outcast Creative.
Hello, welcome to a bit of an extra stream that I'm doing this week, especially to talk about a couple of things. This stream is predominantly actually to talk about the latest book that I've just published, which of course is connected to all things British Airborne Forces, World War II, and is very much to do with the television show that I've been in development hell for the last couple of years trying to get made. Actually, it's more like 5 years now. God, where's the time gone? I suppose the pandemic counts for two of those. I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit. But I want to get on to, I want to mention somebody else first, bit of a personal thing. But I haven't really done this properly yet. So I feel like I want to take the opportunity to do it now. Paratrooper is a kind of European focused Band of Brothers story production. It's set over 10 episodes. Each episode's about an hour long. And I've been trying to get it made ever since the Pegasus Bridge film stalled and I decided to switch gears. And I've started publishing the screenplays. Episodes 1 and 2 came out earlier this year, which covers the story of Sidney Cornell. It's ostensibly the feature film pilot. Now, I had already released episodes 7 and 8. I released them first because they were standalone episodes about two battles that are of particular interest, I think, to people who are interested in this subject. One is the German invasion of Crete, which hasn't been covered much in the dramatic narrative before. And the other is the Battle of Arnhem, which, of course, has been covered in movies like A Bridge Too Far. And theirs is The Glory, but this is exclusively seen from the point of view of a young child in this particular episode, which makes it very different. And I'm about to drop Volume 3, which covers Operation Biting and Fustain, which are two British operations. I'm going to talk about them a little bit. I'm going to talk about what's in Volume 3 and these episodes and my choices and why I've written them the way I have, that kind of thing. But before I get on to that, I want to talk about a very special man. So when we were doing various bits of work to put this show together, we, of course, had to do things like work out how much it was going to cost and what the budget was going to be. This involved doing recce's, research, breaking down the scripts, and so on. And I'd written 7 of the 10 or 12 scripts. I forget how many episodes there are now. In fact, let me have a look, because that's in the book, isn't it? I should know, because it's my show. There's 12. Yeah, 12. That's right. There's 12 episodes. I've written 7. And I am publishing all 7 of those, and I'm probably going to try and write the other 5, or some of them anyway. Certainly enough so that there's an equal number. And that involves a lot of work. 2 of the episodes are set in Holland, and the plan was to film them almost entirely in Holland. If you've seen the movie A Bridge Too Far, A Bridge Too Far was shot entirely on location in Holland, including all the scenes that are set in the UK. A lot of people don't know that. I think there was one second unit shot. I think there was a couple of second unit shots that filmed in the UK. One of those was of the street where the planes are coming over, and all the people are coming out of their houses to have a look. Anyway, I'm diversifying slightly, so I want to talk about Jan Gerrit Alberts, who was a Dutch historian and a friend of mine, and he was from the area of Holland known as Friesland, which is the north of Holland, and he hailed from the rather beautiful town of Leeuwarden, which I had the pleasure of visiting in October. Now, Jan, when he learned of our visit to Holland and when we were looking around at where we were going to do these episodes, was filming in Holland practical? If so, where could we film? How would that all work out? He reached out to me, I think via the Facebook page, and we were in communication fairly frequently. And it was largely down to him that the national Dutch press took a huge interest in the show and the potential of the show. And that got us quite a lot of publicity, which also resulted in the Dutch living history groups reaching out to us. And although we didn't really want to start setting up things with them that early, it had occurred to us as we were doing a recce, we could do a couple of test shots. And if we had 10 guys in the right uniforms, why not just do some shots and see how they would look, and see, you know, how many modernisms we would have in those shots and where we could film those shots. So largely thanks to Jan, lots of people found out, and we ended up with about 60 guys, or it might have even been more. It certainly was a lot of guys. And we were just a recce unit. We still had 3 cameras, but we were just a recce unit. You know, it was a real tight team. It was just the 6 of us, I think 6 or 7 of us, from a crew of, we'd just been filming the week before with a crew of like 35. Anyway, so Jan, as I said, he got us national exposure, set up a lot of links with us. He announced earlier this year, in fact, I think it was in September, because he was a Facebook friend of mine, that he was seriously ill. And it was a pure a chance that I had to catch that post. And I reached out to him straight away, and he said he was going to fight it, but that he had been given between 6 weeks to 3 to 4 months to live, maybe 6 months if he was lucky, if chemo worked and so on. The cancer was quite advanced. It had spread to his bones. He hadn't smoked in a very long time, so he had no idea what had caused it. So at that point, when he told me he was going to try and fight it, I kind of had a decision to make. Well, I felt I had a decision to make, which was whether to go and see him. And I did think about going to see him at this Christmas, because I don't have any family left, so I wasn't planning on, I didn't have firm plans for Christmas. So I did think about going to visit Jan at Christmas time, but something told me that I should go and see him very soon if I was going to go and see him. And I also thought if I went to see him and he was trying to fight his cancer, it would help him. It would help sort of rally him a bit. It's probably fantastical thinking on my part, but I was trying to sort of stay positive about these things. So that's what I did. I did go and visit him in Leeuwarden. It was a 5-hour train journey out of Amsterdam. I didn't realize it took quite so long to get to the north of Amsterdam. It looks so tiny on the map. You think you can get everywhere in an hour from Amsterdam, but that's not quite the case. It was a very pleasant train journey, and I travelled up the north to Leeuwarden to see him. He was overjoyed when I came in. He knew I was coming, but I don't think he really thought I really was coming. There's quite a long way to come and jump on a flight, and you know, it was a tricky decision because I was having trouble making the rent at the time, so there was a lot going on, you know. But anyway, sorry, I put this picture up. He gave me this T-shirt, which I have just over there actually, and this is from one of the Dutch anniversaries, and I'm sort of going to talk about the Dutch a little bit and how seriously they take the anniversary of the various events that took place in their country in World War II, and in particular in relation to Allied liberation, and of course the sacrifices of the 1st Airborne Division. So there's a huge reenacting community that are very, very dedicated, and this is the T-shirt from one of their events. And Jan said to me when I met him in the hospital, because I brought a gift for him, I'll show you a picture of that in a sec, and he said, well, I want to give you a gift, and he gave me this T-shirt. Fantastic T-shirt. I've worn it about 6 times already. So my gift to him was that I had the 2 existing Paratrooper books that were out at the time. I had them reprinted with his name in the front, and they said, "Fight the good fight." And this is him holding those books in hospital. See if I can zoom in a bit. There we go. And it's quite difficult to look at this picture now. Yeah, when I came in the hospital, I realized I'd made the right decision, because Jan was really brave for me, but he was in a lot of pain. But he was made up to get these books and see his name in the front. And he was really annoyed because he wanted to show me round his hometown. He really wanted to show me round Leeuwarden. And I said, well, don't worry, I'll have a look round while I'm there. I was there for about 3 days. I think I came on the Friday and left on the Monday or something. So I guess 5 days, including 2 travel days. And it wasn't exactly a holiday, but I'm really glad I went. It's a town I really would love to go back to. Preferably with someone I love dearly on my arm. Slightly irrelevant, but going there to see him and seeing what my visit meant to him in that moment made it all completely worth it. Regrettably, his cancer took him really fast, and after this picture was taken, he passed away. I think it wasn't even 10 days after this. It was maybe 9 days later, something like that. So if you buy a copy of the Paratrooper book now, in the first 2, you'll see his name, and we say "Fight the good fight." And in the 3rd one, I have dedicated the book especially to him. This is a proof copy, by the way, but you can see it's there. I didn't want to be making a posthumous dedication, but well, I felt that that was the least I could do. I haven't talked about this publicly yet until today, but it really affected me because there's been quite a few people connected to the Pegasus Bridge film, including 3 of the crew who were working on it, who are no longer here, and cancer has taken 2 of those as well. So it's been quite hard when you expected to have that memory with those people, and you didn't get to have it because of circumstances and because of the actions of others. That is very difficult. Anyway, let us move on to the main topic. But while I'm talking about the Dutch, I also want to give this Living History group a shout out. Jan was sort of active on the Living History scene. He wasn't particularly affiliated to any one group. I think he kind of would prop up at various events of his own accord. But one group that I think is particularly good is Living History Group Holland, it's called. This is their website. And they're very interested in keeping alive the memory of the various historical events. It's a very good website. Some photos here from various events. Let's click on 2019. Go back a little bit, maybe. See if we can. I don't know if we can see those, or maybe we need to be a member to see the fudge grass. I don't know that. I don't know. Oh no, here we go. Here are some. So they do various reenacting events. They've got quite a significant membership. They've done Normandy, and also don't just play. They play various allied or reenact as various allied units. It's a really so I do British Combined Forces, US operations, and so on. Well worth looking at. So if you're interested, do check it out. They do an airborne medical reenactment group as well, which is quite an unusual topic. They've done these huge displays of what it was like back then. Really great dedication to the topic at hand, and I highly recommend their website if you're someone in Holland who's thinking about getting involved in reenactment. You want to keep the important memory of these topics alive, which I think is very important, especially for the younger generation who are forgetting about them all too quickly now. Then I highly recommend you check out this group. They're not the only group in Holland. There are several good ones, but this is one I'm going to mention. And this is a group who are very willing to get involved to help us out with Paratrooper. And, you know, these people don't want huge sums of money. They just want to be involved. And although Living History and reenactment groups have a reputation for a lot of their members being the wrong side of the age of 50 and slightly overweight, they do actually have, most groups do actually have quite a few younger members now. So they're always able to field something and contribute somehow. And, you know, having a few guys that are slightly older in the background of a shot is better than having 5 cardboard cutouts, which is what a lot of films have used. And I'm not kidding about that. So anyway, let's move on. So ostensibly I'm here to talk about Paratrooper, but I felt it was more important to give Gerrit a shout out because he was really helpful. So in lockdown, I wrote a lot of the Paratrooper scripts, including these 2 episodes. And these 2 episodes, episodes 3 and 4 in the series, one is called The First, the second is called Under the Crocodile. So episode 3, the first, is about Operation Biting, which is also known as the Bruneval Raid, which takes place in Normandy in northern France. It's the first official operation of the British Airborne Division. There was an earlier airborne operation called Operation Colossus, which was a colossal FU, but that was the first actual operation, airborne operation. And there were also a couple of operations in Norway, but these were not official operations of the 1st Airborne Division, which had not been formed at that time. So the reason that episode 3 is called the first is because Operation Biting was the first official operation of the newly formed British Airborne Division, and its success resulted in the Parachute Regiment being formed shortly thereafter, which of course was the core component of British Airborne Forces going forward. It was a raid on a German radar installation. It was a combined Allied operation because the Navy were involved. They performed the extraction of the men and the equipment that they captured, along with the prisoners they captured, and took them back to England. The operation was led by Major John Frost. And Frost, of course, most people will know that name from the Battle for Arnhem Bridge and Bridge Too Far, where he was played by Anthony Hopkins. Played very well, I might add. This is he's the main character for episode 3. Now, Major Frost, there's quite a lot of footage available of the real guy, and I mean, you know, you're talking about an incredibly well-read, educated, well-spoken, upper-class officer class of the 1940s here. So writing the dialogue for him was pretty easy, but at the same time, it was difficult to kind of, you know, do I make it more modern and make him sound a bit more gritty, or do I write him the way I knew he spoke, but make it sound very old school? Ultimately, because these scripts are my versions, and even when you, as a writer, when you first do a screenplay, only probably 50% of your screenplay ends up on the screen by the time it's gone through all the production notes. Actors have got hold of it and they suggest changes and all the rest of it. You know, these things get hacked and hacked and hacked and hacked to pieces. So these are my versions, and fortunately I get to say what I want to have in them right now. So you can read the versions that I would like to see, although I fully accept that they may need to be more modernized, and the dialogue, particularly in these 2 episodes, will not be to everyone's taste. Okay, I fully accept that. Some people may find it cliched, as one person so eloquently put it on a review recently. Well, you know, that sort of criticism I'm quite open to discuss, but I have gone out of my way to make sure that these episodes are historically accurate. I mean, I really have gone out of my way. Now, when someone does a review and says it's inaccurate, I know they're just trolling me. Nice try. But if anybody spots inaccuracies that they think are massive, and you want to come and discuss them with me, please come on the show, and I'll talk to you about them, and we will discuss them. And if there are ways that the show can be improved, hey, I'm all up for it. So yeah, Paratrooper has a massive pitch pack available. We did a pitch deck for it. We've got a second unit. We've got a trailer for it. These are not things that are in the public domain, but these are things that you send to places like Netflix and Amazon and so on. There really isn't a difference between a script and a screenplay, although a script could also refer to a play. A screenplay is a story intended for the screen cinema, but it's also can be for a television drama and so on. It's a bit of a colloquial term. So yeah, so these two episodes are very, very British centric. This is the cover for the pitch pack. It's not indicative of the entire show, but the pilot is about one of the first black paratroopers in the British Army. From what I can tell, he was the first, in fact. Sidney Cornell. Cornell is not in these two episodes. Episode 3 begins in Africa, because Major Frost, before he applied to transfer for airborne operations, he was actually located in Tunisia. So the episode starts in Tunisia with Frost over there, and you kind of get a bit of background to sort of Frost's, his occupation before he was in Airborne Forces, where he was serving, this kind of thing, and you get a bit of a sense of his background. He's not married at the time that he joins the Airborne Forces, and for a man of his age at that time in England, that's quite unusual. Not to be married at that age. But I've read his autobiography, which was one of many sources that I used to form the script for episode 3. And he was quite adamant that he didn't want to get married or be in a relationship when he was going to serve at war, because it would be an unnecessary distraction and it wouldn't be fair on the woman at home. Now, that's interesting, because Lieutenant Anthony Frank, who is the main character for episode 4, and I'll come back to him in a minute, that's also the reason he did not get married before he went. So the two the two episodes here are both told from the narrative of British officers from the upper class, white men, straight into the army, an officer level, both in the Airborne Forces, but both quite different personalities. Frost is quite reserved. Anthony Frank is a bit more personable, and I think he's more at the same level as the men that serve under him in a way. And it's not that Frost isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He absolutely isn't. But they are different characters, even though they're from the same class. Now, because these two episodes are both predominantly told from a white male perspective, that's the kiss of death, where as far as getting anything commissioned or made or financed these days from any of the major television platforms. But don't forget, these are only 2 episodes out of 12. And the other episodes cover stories. We have a black paratrooper, of course, in the first 2 episodes. We have a story from the German perspective. We have a story from the Dutch perspective, a Polish perspective, a Canadian perspective. In the episode in Crete, we have the first black Aboriginal Australian soldier in that episode. But these are all things that factually happened. These are all people that were really there. There's nothing conjured up for the sake of ticking a box or anything like that. I've put these people in these stories because they were there, because it's factually accurate, because it's correct. I watched a TV show, a very good TV show, which is a comedy about people trying to make it in the film industry. And one of the jokes that's cracked in that show is when people are pitching ideas, is that there's a white guy, isn't it? We don't want to make another show, but with a white guy telling a story about World War II. And I was like, oh, well, I'm one of those guys. And that joke on that show was definitely at my expense, rightly or wrongly. And that just goes to show that the major platforms in a way, kind of consider that stuff not in vogue. It's not the stuff they want to make right now, because it's from a period of time where, if you're telling something historically accurately, that period does not embrace diversity and so on. So, these are difficult shows to get made at the moment. World War II is not. Yeah, they're making Das Boot, but anyone who's watched that TV show will know that historically it's bollocks. It's not a mini series of the movie. It's a completely different thing. It's just about German subcrews, but with all kinds of other stuff added that didn't really happen. This show is as factually correct as I can make it. I'm not going to write stuff into it just for the sake of getting it commissioned. Now, that may mean that it's never commissioned at all. That's okay, because I write other stuff that I'm quite happy to just make the material for the widest audience possible, and that a lot of different people from different demographics will enjoy. I think people will like these stories. I think they're important stories and they should be told. So moving on to episode 4, the reason it's called Under the Crocodile is because Winston Churchill referred to Sicily and Italy collectively as the soft underbelly of the crocodile. In other words, if the Allied forces could gain a toehold on the Italian mainland, they would be able to push on up through eventually into Germany, Austria, and so on, and be a right thorn in Hitler's proverbial arse, so to speak. Pre-missile bridge was the objective of the British Airborne Forces in what's known as Operation Fustain or Fustian. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I may be wrong. I've got a photograph actually of the bridge here. So let's take this one down and pop that up. This is known as the first bridge too far. This bridge changed hands during the battle about 3 times. Now, we don't focus on the bridge itself. And this bridge is no longer here, by the way. And it wasn't really a consideration as to, can we find a location? You can always find a location that works without having to build another bridge. Trust me, there'll be a bridge of a similar design out there somewhere that we could film on. This bridge was demolished shortly after the war. This is a damaged pillbox, I think, on the right here. This was overlooked by 3 hill features, which were codenamed Johnny 1, 2, and 3, or collectively known as the Johnnies. Yes, I know, very amusing. These overlooked pre-missile bridge from some distance away, but they were, of course, key strategic features. So they had to be captured by the British in addition to the bridge, and they had to be held. And they were located to the south of the bridge. And the other thing about them was if the British held them, any German forces retreating from the sea would not be able to retreat via the bridge, whether the British held it or not. So 1 battalion was assigned to capture the Johnnies, and another battalion was assigned to capture the bridge. So we follow the adventures of Anthony Frank, who's a lieutenant, who also went on to fight at Arnhem. But on this episode, we're concerned purely with his actions in Sicily. And what's interesting about this episode is it links in to the invasion of Crete episode, which is the German episode, which is episode 7, because one of the paratroopers in this episode meets the German Fallschirmjäger, who keeps a journal. And the aid station changed hands about 5 times during this battle. And what's unique about this battle is that the German Fallschirmjäger, or German paratroopers, had dropped into Sicily just 24 hours before the British did. I think not even I think it was even tighter than that. I think it was about 8 hours or something. So they literally dropped a few hours before the British. They were still they were widely dispersed. They were still trying to collect up their equipment and weapons, canisters, and so forth. And they were racing to defend key positions. So the British Airborne and German forces ended up clashing at Premisol Bridge for the very first time. And this is the first time they went head to head. And once they realized that the other was fighting against their airborne counterparts, something quite unusual happened. And that's one of the things I wanted to really examine in this episode, is that there was a great level of respect shown towards the wounded. There's an extraordinary episode during the battle for the Johnnies where the Germans decide to set fire to the vegetation in order to create smoke to cover their advance up the hill so that they can take the hill. The hill is fiercely defended by the British, Lieutenant Anthony Frank commanding, and 2 German soldiers are injured in the legs and they can't retreat. And the shrubland around these individual soldiers has caught fire. And this is all in the script. This is all in episode 4. And the 2 Germans are about to be burned alive. What's incredible is that one private decides he can't watch that happen. And he charges down the hill in the face of the enemy and picks up not one, but both the Germans, one under each arm, and carries them back up the hill, even though both are injured and can barely walk, so that they're not burned alive. And this is an event that's witnessed in the midst of the battle by both the German and British forces involved. So there was this great level of respect accorded during the battle for the 3 Johnnies and so on. I mean, of course, there were acts of brutality and terrible things happened as well. But when researching the subject, there was a number of episodes like that. Obviously, I couldn't include them all in a 65-minute drama, but I did endeavour to include as much of those kind of vignettes as I could. And the focus of the story is very much around the way that the Germans and the British treated each other during that battle, which was quite different from any other that I'd read. There's quite a few scenes set at the aid station. The young German Fallschirmjäger ends up losing his diary, which is ultimately picked up by one of the British soldiers. That diary is then translated, and it's the translation of that diary that forms episode 7 later in the war, but we go back in time to the invasion of Crete, and we learn what happens to that German soldier prior to him being deployed in Sicily. Hey, temp name. I don't know if that's you're literally just a guest on YouTube, but thank you. Yeah. So yeah, it is a pretty cool episode, pretty cool incident in history. If you're talking about in fact, I'll tell you the name of the guy who did that. So this is all in here. I'm sure it was a private or a corporal. I think it was Private Stemp, if I remember. And let me just double check, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, get ready. They'll be coming. Let me have a look. Fall back to the second line. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, it was no, sorry, it was Corporal Neville Ashley who did that. There's a lot of characters to remember in the episode. And yeah, he in front of various other witnesses performed that rather extraordinary act of bravery And when he gets back to his own lines, Lieutenant Frank says to him, "That was both incredibly brave and really stupid, Corporal." He says, "Yes, sir. I don't quite know what made me do it." You know, I mean, what made him do it was a moment of humanity. And I think those are it's quite important to tell those stories, because I bet, and I don't want to throw a hot political potato into this discussion, but I bet in Gaza right now, on both sides, there are stories of kindness like that. I bet there are moments of humanity where one person is helping, I guess, what you would call the enemy of their other, among all the brutality, among all the terrible things we're hearing about. I'm sure there are moments of humanity, and those stories may take a while to come out, but trust me, there will be some. There will be some. So the battle for Premisol Bridge is very much the focus of episode 4. There's quite a few other tragic things that occur. A lot of people who survived the initial battle, you know, they're being taken away in ambulances, only for those ambulances to get machine gunned by German fighter Me-109s. Again, it really happened, and a whole load of them are killed. Bit of a spoiler alert there. But yeah, so these are very British episodes. They are very British. The dialogue is very old school. I know I'm going to get a bit of flack for that. But that's okay, because as I said, it's my version of these stories, very much so. And those are the versions I want people to see. Just going back to episode 3, because I didn't show any pictures. This is on a great website called combinedDrops.com. This is the site of the Bruneval radar station. That's a reconnaissance photograph that was taken prior to the operation. You can see the trench going out to the radar station there, and that's this old kind of villa. That villa's now been demolished, but that's where this is where the raid was led. First official operation of the British Airborne Division. They only lost a couple of men, although 6 were left behind. Some were wounded, but it was a massive success. Churchill took personal interest in the operation, and after that, airborne stuff was ramped up. It was the number of airborne soldiers was increased. We went from 1 to 2 divisions pretty quickly, and yeah, it was you know, it was really key in putting British Airborne Forces on the map. There is also a really good book available on Operation Colossus, which, as I said earlier at the beginning of the stream, was actually the first airborne British operation, but it was not part of the Airborne Division. It was not part of the Parachute Regiment. These things had not formed as entities at that time. So they were not yet, you know, they were not yet labeled under those banners. But if you want to read a book on Operation Colossus, I highly recommend the one that's available. Let me just get the name of the author quickly. I think I may already actually have that information below this stream, but just in case, I like promoting the work of other people. I've always done that. I don't really see anyone else who takes their own interest in these topics as a rival, in the same context that I don't see other filmmakers who want to make films on this subject as other rivals. The more on the subject, the better, as far as I'm concerned, as long as they're done well. This is the book on Operation Colossus by Lawrence Patterson. And of course, our first airborne deployments, including the one for Operation Biting in episode 3. The men were deployed from bombers, less than ideal ways of deploying the men, I can tell you now. An extremely uncomfortable journey as well, where one man would have to sit with his legs sort of, tucked across the man sitting opposite him, because the room on board the bombers is so cramped. This is a very good book, so if you want to read up on the very first operation, I recommend it, by Lawrence Patterson. So volume 3 of Paratrooper, you should be able to order it from Amazon from tomorrow. This version of it is slightly bigger. It will actually be the same size as the earlier books. I just ordered this one in a larger size because this is a proof copy, and boy did I have a ton of corrections, and I dare say there's probably mistakes I've missed. But if you're interested and you have been supporting the Paratrooper project by buying the other books, I thank you. This is a project I'm very passionate about, and anybody who thinks that I don't know the subject well and that my scripts are full of historical inaccuracies, I take personal umbrage with that. And you're welcome to come on my channel and have a chat with me about it, and we'll look at any historical inaccuracies that you think are there and see if they can be rectified. This is a drama series, it's not a documentary, but like with Band of Brothers, which also took some little liberties, I try to make it as accurate as I can, because I want it to be accurate, because I don't want people to watch this show or even read the screenplays and come away from them with any kind of false impression of history. So the names of the characters are all real unless I've specified otherwise. Everything that happened really happened in all the episodes, again, unless I've specified otherwise. There are some timings of some events, and especially stuff in Cornell's personal life that's a little bit condensed in episodes 1 and 2, but again, for the sake of dramatic license. Right, listen, that's it from me. It's only a short stream. Thanks for tuning in. Again, just want to send my personal best wishes to Gerrit Jan Albert's family, particularly his son, who I forget if he reached out to me or I reached out to him, but certainly that happened. And it's obviously a very difficult time for their family. Also want to give a shout out to Rick Raymakers, who's another historian who Gerrit mentioned to me, who he was keen to connect me with, and he actually wanted me to hang out with him when I was in Holland, but I came over there like on a whim. It was, the whole thing was very last moment, but I am in touch with Rick now. So yeah, Abe Albert's his son, Gerrit's son, who's at a concert tonight, because I did say to him if he wanted to come on and briefly talk about his dad, he'd be very welcome, and maybe he might want to do that another time down the road. Again, he'd be very welcome. Also thanks to Jan Yes Angels for giving me the link for his reenactment group so I could give it a plug. And also want to thank Paul Woodidge from World War II TV, who's done the forward for the new book. Also the guys from Fighting on Film, Matt and why have I suddenly forgotten the other one? No, their support has been consistent, unlike my memory. They've been really helpful, and it's been really helpful. So yeah, Paul Woodidge I was going to have a guest on tonight talking with me. Unfortunately they had to drop out, and I had just shouted out to Woody from World War II TV to see if he could come on. He's just done 3 streams today. He's doing 5 tomorrow. Busy man. You know, so it's all good. Thanks, Woody, though. I appreciate that you would have come on if you could have done. Paratrooper is a separate project from my YouTube channel, but it's something, of course, I'm going to plug because this is my channel. My channel predominantly promotes the work of creative people, whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're a comic book artist, if you're in a band, if you're in a DJ, you've got some creative work that I can see that you're producing or that you're working on that I think has some merit. Then get in touch with me via the Outcast Creative Facebook page. I am always up for promoting the work and the skill sets of other creatives. I've got some fantastic guests coming on in the new year. I've got one more interview this year with actor Tim Bentic, who has actually played Rommel in the BBC D-Day documentary, which had Rommel in it. A lot of scenes with Rommel. Tim Bentic played Rommel in that drama. He's been an actor for over 5 decades and has 175 credits on IMDb. So we're going to be talking to Tim Bentic next Monday afternoon. I also have there's a bit of information about Tim there. Industry interview 46. I've got him on next Monday. I've also got various other reviews and things. We do a show called the Nielsen Ratings every Tuesday at 10 p.m. The last one of those this year is next week. I cover all kinds of stuff on that, but particularly stuff on TV and cinema that we've been watching recently. I've also got the annual quiz on the channel. It's going to be annual from this year onwards. It is actually in its 26th year or something, but I normally do them in person. That's going to be on this Sunday, on the 17th of December. I've got a whole load of YouTubers coming on, people with their own channels. Then on Monday the 18th, we're going to be reviewing the Martin Weir Napoleon film from 1996. That is a parody review, not to be taken seriously, but that's going to be a lot of fun. So that's going to be on Monday evening. All right, so that's it from me, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And a bit of a niche stream for some people, I know. But if you are interested in World War II, you like Band of Brothers, please do support me by purchasing my screenplays on Amazon. You can also get the Pegasus Bridge feature film screenplay there. The higher interest in the subject, the easier it is going to be to get these shows made. I expect to have an announcement connected to Paratrooper in 2024, but I can't say anything else about that right now. Anyway, that's it from me. Thanks for tuning in. My very best wishes for the best Christmas possible to the Albert family and to everyone else. I hope you have a fantastic holiday season, and I'll see you all again soon.